I'm a little bit baffled. This preoccupation with design processes. And it seems like the boot camps that are out there and the online courses and even some programs are trying to teach designers that the process is actually design. Or maybe that's what's coming across. And it seems like a lot of people are confusing the design process for the role and the job of design. And that's not really helpful because design is not really a process. There may be processes that are helpful that you can follow, but design is not a process. Design is more like a discipline or a craft. Design is actually more like jazz than a factory line process. Design is trying to understand primarily through the act of creation. It's what we create that actually helps us to understand and vet out what the best possible option is. Victor Wooten is one of my all-time favorite musicians. And one of the things he says in an interview is that people don't hire him to play the right notes or to play in the right key. It's not actually about the notes at all. People hire him because they want to groove. They want to feel the music and they want to dance to it. They want their body to be moved and persuaded by the music. And that's a great analogy for design. We don't hire musicians to play the right notes. We hire musicians to make us feel the music. The same way, we don't hire designers to do the design process. We hire designers to find the solutions to those wicked, gnarly problems that exist out there. You know, as I'm interviewing designers to potentially hire them, one of the questions I like to ask is something along the lines of, what's your process for doing design? And the best answers come from the people who say, well, there really is no perfect process. I don't really have a process I follow, but here are some general things that I do along the way. That comes from experience and a deeper understanding that design is not a process. Design is a set of activities and tools that are brought together to be used with expertise to reach the outcome, but can't necessarily be universally sequenced in a way that solves for every design problem everywhere. It has to be an on-the-fly choreograph along the way, depending upon what kind of design problem you're encountering. So why do we have this preoccupation then with design processes? Well, design processes can actually be helpful, but oftentimes they get confused. And rather than the process serving the design work or the designer, it often gets turned around that the designer then has to serve the process. There's sort of this preoccupation with trying to over-proceduralize or over-choreograph or over-structure design activities so that you always end up with the best possible result in the end. And even to make things worse, we've tried to shove design discipline and design practices into an agile world where you are time boxing 2-week cycles, and design really doesn't fit neatly into those things. Design is the thing that bridges the problem that we're dealing with or the goal that we're trying to accomplish with the materials available. So design does the exploration and the understanding and the synthesis work to bring the problem and the materials together into a solution that's actually going to work to a product that brings value to people. That's design work. And what happens during the craft and the time spent in the discipline as you're bringing these two worlds together to unite is a lot of exploration. There's a lot of forward progress. There's a lot of backward progress. There's discovery along the way. You're going to understand the problem better by the thing that you've created and tested and thrown against the problem. You're going to look at multiple different problems along the way because designers have to explore multiple problems. So most of these processes sort of function and are designed and are created and portrayed in this left to right fashion, and one thing leading to another. And then they try to sort of subvert that by showing arrows that connect all the different things. But at the end of the day, that's still a little misleading because design cannot be over proceduralized. Design cannot be created as a process. So design is much more like jazz. Just like in jazz music, no one can tell you what the next right note to play is because there's a field of options in front of you. And you can choose any one of them and they will still work and you can make them be resolved in the end. You also, in design, can't be told what the next right step is because there are a field of options and there are maybe more solutions to explore. There's maybe more problem understanding we need to do or possibly materials understanding. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to create a solution in the end. And while these processes might be helpful to inform what kind of tools we have available to us, they're not actually the roadmap to design. One of my favorite quotes is from Ozan Voral in his book, Think Like a Rocket Scientist. He mentions that processes were created to solve the problems of the past. And there may be some problems that popped up where there are elements of design that were left out. So these processes were invented to try to assure that we would do all the right activities along the way. But there's a fundamental flaw by trying to use process to do design work because every design problem, every design situation, the goals of design are always changing. So there's no roadmap to solving that problem. unless you're solving an already solved problem, which in that case is probably not design work. So that shows that there's really just a fundamental mismatch between the process of design and the design work that needs to be done. So I'm going to say something that might sound a little heretical to a ton of designers out there, which is forget about the process. Just do the work of a designer. There's a few things you have to do design work. You have to explore multiple options. You have to take good solutions and smash them against bad solutions and understand why some work and why some don't. And does that actually help me understand the problem even better? You have to test the options you create. You have to evaluate them and look at them and stress them and figure out why they're working and why they're not. And how does that inform the end goal or the outcome we're going for? That also means then that you have to acknowledge that there is some end goal. Your designer is not just creating just for the sake of creation. Designers are creating to achieve some sort of outcome or solve some sort of problem or reach some sort of goal. There's a driving force behind what we're doing, and we have to understand that and work towards that, even if we don't fully comprehend exactly what that is. And lastly, you have to understand and work towards the end materials in mind. An architect that specifies a building with materials that can't be created or are inappropriate is not really going to help anything. Just like a designer who doesn't understand the end materials, whether they're physical materials in the real world for some physical object or whether they're digital materials like code and software and hardware, you have to work towards those end materials in mind. At the end of the day, designers are trying to help understand what will be created and go forth and produce that. So stop worrying so much about the perfect process or the right process and worry about being the designer in the room. Worry about doing your job to create what needs to be created to solve the problems that are in front of you. And within those criteria, those elements of design, you're going to move around between all of them at any one stage. And moving between all of those things can't be necessarily choreographed. And that's the job of a designer, is to know what tool we're going to grab off the shelf to drive greater clarity in actually creating the thing that we need to create to solve and accomplish whatever goal is at the end. Now, if you are finding this helpful and it's sort of expanding understanding, make sure to let me know by hitting that like button. There's two great books that I want to recommend to you on this topic. The first one is called Design Thinking by Nigel Cross, and it has absolutely nothing to do with a process that you follow for design work, but it has everything to do with how designers think and the most successful designers act. This book is fantastic because it actually looks at several different designers in their industries that were highly successful and what made them successful. What about their practice and their craft and their activities was the thing that actually drove them to be successful and to create very successful, innovative solutions. Throw everything you think you know about design away, put it in the garbage, light it on fire, and then read this book and let it inform you. The second one is Notes on the Synthesis of Form by Christopher Alexander. Yes, it's a mouthful. And yes, as the title suggests, this book is pretty intense. There's a lot of depth here. And really, the people who are going to benefit from this book the most are people who are seasoned designers. They've been in the industry for years, and they're looking to evolve their understanding of design as a practice into design as a methodology, and what works and what doesn't, and what is it about actually creating something that works in design. And even though this book is not really an easy reader, it is very helpful in evolving your understanding between the problems we're trying to solve for, the solutions that we create, and what it means to find fit in those problems. So these two books have been very, very helpful in evolving my understanding and taking me beyond a simple craft understanding of design to practice and discipline and what that actually means and how designers are actually supposed to work at the end. So go be a designer today. Go do the work of design and use your designerly ways to help other people succeed. And if you have follow-up thoughts or you feel like maybe I've missed something, make sure to leave a comment below. I'm really curious to see how other people have wrestled with this problem of design process in their day-to-day practice. All right, thanks so much. Have a good one.